Apologize.
No problem. Got it. Good morning. Happy liturgical new year and welcome to the first Sunday of Advent. Advent literally means coming, and we prepare for the coming of Jesus into the world, born anew. And so we are awaiting a newborn baby who happens to be God incarnate. And so Advent is a time when the whole world is pregnant with love and preparing to bear love into the world. So if you've been pregnant before, if you've never been pregnant, if you Advent is a time when we are all pregnant. Men, women, non-binary people, everyone. We are getting ready to bear love into the world. So a good way to start is to pray. So let us pray. Dear, most gracious, most merciful, most mysterious and wonderful God, at this holy time, at the beginning of the season of Advent, we recognize that we are all pregnant and getting ready to bear the image of love into a world that is desperate for love. We thank you for coming into the world in the small, fragile form of an infant, because nothing teaches us to love like being responsible for the care of a completely vulnerable human being. So thank you for coming into the world in that form. Right now, we are all vulnerable. We are all in need, desperately in need of love. It is a dark and cold time in the world. It is a violent time. It is a scary time. And it is in the darkness when light is kindled and shines most brightly. Help us to take care of ourselves and prepare ourselves to be love in this world, and help us to recognize love in every other person and treat every other person as if we are all getting ready to bear love into the world. Help us treat each other with kindness, with respect, with humility, and with grace. Amen.
Amen.
So, yeah. So, welcome and happy Advent. So for the next 4 Sundays, we are going to prepare for, we're preparing, of course, for Christmas. And it just requires a lot of preparation. Anytime we are preparing to welcome a new person into the world, we prepare, we clean, we sweep, we try to make sure everything is safe and secure, and we work hard to bring beauty and joy and festivity in order to welcome someone. And it's kind of a weird thing because as we are working so hard to prepare, we also have to take the most care of ourselves and be kind to ourselves, be gentle to ourselves, all while getting ready for our lives to be completely upended. So, so it's a rather contradictory time. Or I guess what I should say is it's a time of paradoxes. So, I guess the way that I was planning to lead this, first of all, I was hoping to have more on the screen except besides just my face, but that's okay because I have a lot in my head. So, I thought we would look at the lectionaries for the weeks of Advent, not everything, but see how they relate to the four virtues of Advent, one for each Sunday, that correspond to the candles that we light on the Advent wreath, and maybe see how the Sunday's lectionary reflects one of those virtues. And then I was thinking that another way we observe the season of Advent is with Advent calendars. And we have some really beautiful ones that the church has provided for us. There's this Advent calendar, which try forward. I'm sorry, yeah, from forward. So there's this Advent calendar. And this is really beautiful, very nicely done. But I was thinking of all the other types of Advent calendars, one of the most famous and favorites being the chocolate Advent calendar. But I was also thinking about what are other ways we could observe the season. And I thought, well, one way is with a virtues of Advent calendar where we every day you pull out a new card that has a virtue on it, like love or peace, like the ones on here. But I was hoping that if we had a lot of people, we could all write one word that we think of a virtue that we want to cultivate this Advent season, whether it's humility or compassion or gratitude. And we write it down and then pass it around, and everyone take what someone else has written and reflect on what that means. And the fact that we have 3 people here makes that a little harder, but we can discuss that. I also thought, what if we had an Advent calendar full of hopes for the world? So instead of something like, peace is a hope for the world, but like something like, for example, what's been on my mind forever, for at least the past 2 months, peace between Palestine and Israel. And for me, that has been something that I've thought of for much longer than the last 2 months. So writing down one hope for the world like that, and then thinking of one way we, in our own small but meaningful way, can contribute to that big goal. And I've thought of all these other things, all these other ways we could observe Advent all these types of Advent calendars. So I will get to that. So reflecting on the 4 main virtues of Advent, and then reflecting on different ways of making Advent calendars, was how I thought we might spend our day. So, and I thought I would show off this. When I think of Advent at St. Mark's in particular, I think very much of this book, the Advent book. This is by Jack and Kathy Stockman, and I received it. I received this book at one of the Women's of St. Mark's meetings. I actually drew a prize to get it for free. So
your camera desperately wants your face instead of the book. It's really funny. The camera keeps going to your face. There we go. That's perfect.
There we go. Works just beautifully. Okay, so the Advent book. This is special to St. Mark's because it is literally written by literal friends of St. Mark's, and because it is absolutely gorgeous, and because it has a picture of one of the parishioners of St. Mark's. So when you get to door 18, there is a familiar face beyond that door, and maybe I'll get to that a little later. But I guess I want to start with today being the first Sunday of Advent, is the Sunday of Hope. So when we light the Advent calendar, when we light the Advent wreath, the first candle is the candle of hope. And I actually have something I want to show you. So I have a picture that, let me see. I want to share my screen for a second, but first I want to make sure I have the right image to share on my screen. Not that one. Yes, this one. So let me see. Share content. Okay. There we go. Oh, and it's
you've got to silence yourself. Oh, you did.
How do I?
Oops.
No. I messed the sound all up.
Go ahead and say stop share.
I think I got it. Nope.
No. Okay, try it again. Okay, good. Now go ahead and, well, actually say something. Let's make sure it's not still doing it.
Well, you're echoing.
No, okay, yeah. You need to disconnect your sound, so you may actually need to go back out and back in again. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And when you do come back in again, don't activate sound. When you go to share, there's a thing you can click that says share sound. Don't do that.
Well, that's what I did the first time I signed in, and I didn't re-sign in, so I don't understand.
It didn't, when you were sharing screen, did it say share sound? There was a button that
Yeah,
sometimes,
kind of.
yeah. So you don't want, when you're sharing your screen, you don't want to share sound. You just want to share your screen.
Right. Now I can't rejoin the meeting.
I'll let you in, I promise.
I know you will, but the easy button to just the easy button to just get in here. Open in Zoom. Oh, okay. Here we go. Join.
Phew. There you are. And then when it says connect to Zoom, or to voice, there you go.
Yep. No audio. Share content. Screen. Start broadcast. And
nope, it's going to share your sound whether you want it to or not.
That's right.
Nope,
And I have to go in and out.
Sorry.
This is not gonna work. That's okay. So Advent is the season of preparation, and I feel very unprepared, but that's okay. I have the picture that I was going to share on my phone, and if I hold it up to the camera, that will probably do the trick just as well. So this, I know it's a little bit hard to see, but this is the Advent wreath that my father carved for my family. It is it's carved with wood, and it's got holly painted around it, and it's really beautiful. If you could see it in person, it would be a lot prettier, but this is something that gives me tremendous hope, because this is because my father is an atheist, and he made this for us anyway. And just for me, it's just a symbol of it's such a symbol of kindness, and that's kind of a light of hope in the dark when you can do something kind for someone. Of course, he did it because he's my father and he loves me, and also because he loves Christmas. He loves all the traditions of Christmas, even if he doesn't believe in it the same way I do. And for me, I really feel like the most important thing is to manifest love to the world. And it doesn't really matter how you process what that means in your head, as long as you're doing it. So my father is just a manifestation of love to me, which is, of course, what Christmas is all about. But the hope that we can reach each other and try to understand each other, and be the, give and be the gifts that others need, even if we don't agree, even if we have different ideologies, even if we have different perspectives. The whole wreath itself that my father made for us, because he made it, symbolizes all of that to me. So The very first Sunday's gospel it begins in darkness. It's a very apocalyptic gospel. In this year B, it's Mark. We're in the Gospel of Mark now, by the way. We just left the marvelous Mr. Matthew for the magnificent Mr. Mark. So, because it is now year B. So, and today's reading of the gospel, and I won't read the whole lesson, but I'll just read the first part of it and the last part. So Jesus said, in those days after that suffering, the sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light, and the stars will be falling from heaven, and the powers in the heavens will be shaken. Then they will see the Son of Man coming in clouds with great power and glory. Then he will send out the angels and gather his elect from the four winds, from the ends of the earth to the ends of heaven. And then towards the end it says, but about that day or hour no one knows, neither the angels in heaven nor the Son, but only the Father. Beware, keep alert, for you do not know when the time will come. And what I say to you, I say to all, keep awake. So that's the first lesson, and it's supposed to correspond with the Sunday of Hope. And the first few things Jesus says don't sound particularly hopeful. Talks about a time of suffering, the sun darkened, the moon not giving light. But it's in that time, the time of suffering and darkness, that the light begins to flicker and shine. And we prepare. It says to prepare for the Son of Man coming in clouds with great power and glory. And that's what we think the manifestation of God on earth will be. And then it always strikes me how different that image is from the tiny baby with no room in the inn to be born, who has to be born in the humblest of conditions, and then soon becomes a refugee and wanders and goes to Egypt and comes back. And, it amazes me how in a time of darkness and suffering, what we hope for is probably that someone coming in power and glory. I mean, when I think about what's happening in Gaza today, for example, I think it's going to take something tremendous and just tremendous and unexpected and powerful to stop the violence and the chaos and the suffering and the pain. And what comes to us at Christmas is God born in flesh, and we are required to take care of the most vulnerable, the most humble, the weakest. And it occurs to me that if we can recognize that right now and find God in the weak and vulnerable and powerless, and do what we can to care for God in flesh, in every single body, every vulnerable, mortal, hurting, suffering, shivering, scared body, if we can do that, that's what it takes to bring peace on earth. It's not, God, maybe someday God will come in clouds of power and glory, but right now we're called to recognize God in the opposite, in vulnerability and blood and dirt and pain and suffering. And Jesus says, keep awake, for you never know. And what if that means you never know when you're going to see God in somebody. Be on the lookout for God in everybody. And then maybe you'll start seeing it everywhere. So that's how I interpret today's passage. And the hope, I think the hope for me is that we all start trying to see love, the image of love, trying to see love and be love in every person. That is my hope. So what are your hopes? We've got, I was hopeful that we would have more people joining us, and then May came in. So already some of my hopes have been answered.
Who was on here? Just us?
It's just us and Laura, and
Hello.
I can switch back to gallery view so that we can see Laura's beautiful face. I can see her on my computer, but no one else can, so.
Also, my cat has joined us, for he has extreme opinions on this and wants to be right in the middle of it.
I forgot momentarily that this church computer is not a touch screen, so, but we got it now. Here we go.
I understand that one.
So Laura, this morning, my bulletin was not in my email. Is it the problem with my email, or were you late this morning? You know how
yeah, that's actually Wes. So I don't know. I'm sorry. I have no idea.
Oh, let me see if I can find it
I
now.
did get mine in the email.
I got mine,
Okay,
which is
I must have been, it was early. It
somewhere.
was, yeah, it was around 7 o'clock.
Mm.
It's early for some of us.
I love how I get credit for all the work that Wes does, though. That's
Isn't
that's
it wonderful?
I like
think
that.
what-
This is
But then you
this is
got to
appropriate.
I don't even have my email. Oh, here it is.
so.
Anyway, but I hope right now, my
Yeah,
hope-
some of our hopes as we observe the first Sunday of Advent, which is the Sunday of Hope.
oh, I hadn't thought that far ahead.
That's okay.
My hope is that we actually get our Advent wreath up. Then we don't put our Christmas tree up until a week before Christmas. We were very traditional that way. But my hope is that today, our life right now is pretty hectic. And my hope is that we get the Advent wreath up and lit today. One of the candles. That's my hope. That's our Christmas decoration.
You know, I was able to realize that hope because I'm usually like about a week into Advent, I'm like, I need to get this house looking like Advent and Christmas, but like, let alone Advent. Like, it usually takes me longer to put up my Advent wreath too. And the main reason I put it up today was because Father George said, Lindsay, will you help lead a adult formation about Advent? So he helped me realize my hopes. So that is very kind and thoughtful of Father George. So, and I was just showing everyone, and I will not try to show it again on the computer because I had a little fiasco with that, but I was just showing the Advent wreath, and I will just pass it. This is the picture of the Advent wreath my father made me, and I won't keep talking about it, but I'm just very thankful for that.
Oh, that's beautiful.
So
our Advent wreath is literally a square of wood, 6 inches by 6 inches with 5 holes drilled into it. But then I have plastic green I put over the candles. But that's beautiful.
Well, I always advocate Advent wreaths that do not have live greenery on them.
Oh.
This is not live greenery.
I've been to many lectures from the church insurance company about.
Yeah, no,
Ours is not.
absolutely. Well, look, our hopes were answered again because the Fletchers are here. So
Oh my
our
goodness.
hopes that we would have more people join us have been realized. So what a wonderful Sunday of hope it is. So it's the first Sunday, the Sunday of hope, and we just talked about hope. So I will go through the rest of the what the candles might represent and what they will represent for St. Mark's, which are certain virtues of Advent. And the next Sunday will be the Sunday of peace. So the next next week is the Sunday of peace. And
So Lindsay,
yeah.
I noticed that your Advent list, you don't list number 5.
Oh, first of all, that's Father George's list. He put that up there.
He missed it up then.
Okay. And so number 5 would be the Christ candle, which I mean, Christ literally comes into the world at the end, and the season of Advent is all about preparing for Christ. But you know, Christ is also the reason from the beginning and through the whole thing.
Yeah.
And I do have, so my dad's Advent wreath had those 4 spaces. I get a Christ candle for the center, but sometimes members of the household have chewed on the wax of it. So I need to get a new Christ candle. So so yes. So next week will be the Sunday of peace, and then joy, and then love, which love this year falls very appropriately on Christmas Eve, Christmas Eve itself. Very short Advent this year. I mean, technically Advent is the same amount of days every year, but sometimes it starts in November and then the season is longer. So it's 4 Sundays, but like, you know, if the Sunday doesn't fall right before Christmas, then we're still doing Advent-y things up until Christmas.
Yes, we're doing Advent at the one morning service, and that's the 4th. That's for Advent on Christmas Eve.
The 10 a.m.
Let me tell you, altar ministry is on top of this.
I am very impressed.
Oh, I'm sure. I mean,
so we have one, and then we get to switch it all out for the Christmas service.
Right.
And the whole issue is our poinsettias, but we're putting those out ahead of for Advent, because we cannot come in at 11 o'clock and be ready for a 3 o'clock service.
Right.
We can't.
Right. That is a lot of service. So that's,
yeah.
Will there be all 3?
There's no 8 o'clock service, but
Or-
there's a 3, a 5, and a 9, I think.
Nope,
it is.
10.
10?
Mhm.
Oh,
Wow.
thank you.
We are
Because
talking
we have-
about being prepared.
Yes, we have
Yeah.
a house full. We always have a house full. And they all, actually, they're wonderful, because Dick's been at the choir for 2 hours already on Christmas Eve. And then I come in, but my kids drive me there. So I can actually have a glass of wine on Christmas Eve.
Mhm.
You have raised your children well.
They're sweet. They're sweet.
Yeah.
It's anyway, but yes, but I know the 8 o'clock service has been removed this year. I'm not sure.
No, 8 is there. What the 8 is there. The 1 o'clock has been removed. Wait, no, 8 has been removed. Hi, I will stop talking now, because you're right. 8 has been removed.
3 o'clock, a 5 o'clock, and
And a 10.
10 o'clock. 10
And a
o'clock.
10. Yeah, no, you're right. I'm wrong.
It is
Brain
just
fart.
the
Having a
beginning
moment.
of Advent. So if we don't yet feel prepared, we have
Oh,
a long time to go. And
Advent is the season of preparation. If you don't have any preparation to do, you got nothing. We're just doing well. See, you
We're
are
doing well.
prepared
We're
by
doing
having
just
things to
fine.
prepare.
we're doing just fine.
Yes.
We can. So next Sunday will be the Sunday of peace. So I just wanted to look at what the reading is for that Sunday, and
oh, that's right. It'll be in the bulletin.
it will be in the bulletin, because we are very
Yeah.
prepared at St. Mark's. We have
It's the beginning of March,
yeah.
beginning of the good news.
Yep.
through-
Mark 1.
Yeah, the beginning of
So
March.
it's about John the Baptist.
Right. And so is the next week, it's also about John the Baptist too. There's a lot of John the Baptist. Because, yeah,
Because
but
it's Mark.
yeah, I think next week is actually John. For the gospel. Yeah, next week, not next week, but the week after next for the Sunday of
Oh,
Joy.
that's right, we do that.
Yeah, joy is interesting on a lot of Advent wreaths. It's the pink candle where they're all purple except for the joy candle and the Christ candle. But 3 out of 5 are purple, and then one's pink and one's white. And the joy candle being pink, it's like a burst of brightness. And Father George has also called it Stir Up Sunday. So it's like stirring up joy.
That must be the Protestant version, because the pink candle I was raised, that was Mary's candle.
Oh, okay. Yeah, actually there are very many different versions. That was another thing we said, even though these are the words that Father George wrote, and probably what will be said when each candle is lit, everyone does it differently.
Well, I don't think we'll mention Mary in a service.
Oh, it's kind of a shame, because at the beginning of this whole discussion, I was saying that Advent is a time when the whole world is pregnant and getting ready to bear love into the world. And I think it just makes sense to remember Mary, even if we're not Catholic.
Right.
I think it does, because we all, Mary's not the only one tasked with bearing love into the world, and we all, at this season, we're all kind of like Mary. No matter who we are, we're getting ready to bear love into the world, and the labor of love is lifelong and painful and sometimes heartbreaking, but totally worth it. Completely worth it. And it's what we're made for. No matter who we are, it's what we're made for, to bear love into the world. We all do that differently. So John the Baptist is on the Sunday of Peace, and just like today's Sunday, we have a lesson that doesn't sound all that hopeful at first, but we find hope in the darkness. John the Baptist is a prophet who, cries out in the wilderness, and sometimes when the Pharisees come to him, he calls them a brood of vipers. So peace, you brood of vipers. John the Baptist is not actually he's not the man that we might consider the most peaceful. He's wearing camel's hair, which sounds severely uncomfortable. Maybe it's not, but it sounds like it. It sounds.
I think of it as smelly.
Oh, well, smelly. So, yeah, and all these people are drawn to him, but he probably smells pretty gross. That's true. And he's very eccentric. That's the word for John the Baptist. He's eccentric. He's bold. He does not hold back. He calls the Pharisees exactly what he thinks of them. And
well, he does say, "I will he will baptize you with the Holy Spirit."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he says that. Yeah, he's only
the one is coming.
Yeah.
Just remember, John the Baptist recognized Jesus Christ as the Son of God before he was born.
That's right.
So his life, his how he lived was kind of foreordained.
Exactly.
Talking about pregnancy.
Yeah. I feel like all of the gospel readings kind of twist our view around, try to make us see something unexpected, try to make us look at the world a little differently. This eccentric man who lives in the wilderness, he was called to prepare the way of Jesus, which is what we're trying to do now. He's called to do that before he's even born. He has a prenatal encounter with Jesus, while Jesus is even more prenatal, and it's a beautiful scene. These two very unexpectedly pregnant women meeting, and the fruit of their wombs meeting at the same time, and at that point, Jesus has just been conceived, and he's probably tinier than a bonzo bean. When I was looking at the stages of pregnancy when I was pregnant, I started calling my first little one by the size, like, my firstborn went from bonzo to watermelon to the person
Please,
to my firstborn kid. Yeah. So Jesus barely has any legs to dance with, but John has legs, and he's dancing in the womb, and and it's like, he's born knowing that his life will be different, and he lives not according to the world's dictates, but by a different standard, and he's off in the wilderness preparing the way of the Lord, and people are coming to him, and he's telling these people exactly what he thinks of them, but I assume baptizing them anyway. And one thing that we need for peace on earth is the willingness to speak truth to power that John had. I don't know if John was as good at speaking the truth in love as we're called to be. Then again, love isn't always nice and polite. Jesus is love incarnate, and he called people whitewashed tombs, and famously called Peter Satan and things like that. And so love speaks powerful truths sometimes.
But I don't think John ever got to the tactful stage.
Probably not.
Thus he lost his head. I mean, really, I don't.
I know he did. He did. But but Jesus got crucified, and yeah. I don't know. Peace on earth might not look like what we would expect it to look like, and it will take so much struggle and hard work, and it will take going through the difficulties. You don't reach the peace without going through the difficulties.
So on week 4, I doubt that there'll be an adult ed, because
No.
it's one service in the morning.
Right. That makes sense.
And then it's a later time. Do you remember, Laura, what time is the service on the 24th? The morning service.
It's 10 a.m.
10.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
one 10 a.m. service, exactly. Mm-hmm.
So no 9 a.m. adult formation. And if you go to the 10:30 service, get to church a little early because it's at 10. So yeah, I mean, that's part of this this Advent presentation, telling you how we prepare. And one way to be prepared is to know when the services are. And yeah, Christmas Eve is the last Sunday of Advent as well as Christmas Eve. So it will be a very, very, very busy Sunday.
So I'm looking at the calendar, this wonderful calendar that we have, and I'm reading from on the December 23rd, and I'm going to mention it now because people may not see this calendar. It's a prayer for your pastor. Look upon your church and its pastors in this season of hope, which runs quickly to fatigue. So, we could probably say for Laura too.
Oh.
Oh, glory, yes, please.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, so yeah, I was gonna get to Advent calendars, and we haven't even finished going through all the 4 Sundays of Advent, but I'll just go through briefly the Sunday of the third Sunday of Advent, which is joy. It's neat because it's the penultimate Sunday of Advent. We have a parallel in Lent. The penultimate Sunday of Lent is a more joyful Sunday within the season of Lent, even though Lent isn't the most joyful time per se. There's a little there's a taste of joy, and then so there's a taste of joy in Advent too, which is like a foretaste of the joy that will be born on Christmas Day. And so the third Sunday of Advent, okay, that's also John the Baptist. Good, we can skip that. The fourth Sunday of Advent is the Sunday of love. And actually the gospel is all about Mary and giving, what the angel says to Mary when she first conceives. It goes into Luke, but the canticle, which I don't know if we will have that, but the canticle on the lectionary page is the Magnificat, which is one of my favorite passages of the Bible. And so that's my soul proclaims the greatness of the Lord. My spirit rejoices in God, my Savior, for he has looked with favor on his lowly servant. From this day, all generations will call me blessed. The Almighty has done great things for me, and holy is his name. He has mercy on those who fear him in every generation. He has shown the strength of his arm. He has scattered the proud in their conceit. He has cast down the mighty from the thrones and lifted up the lowly. He has filled the hungry with good things, and the rich he has sent away empty. So that's the beginning of the Magnificat in the Sunday of love. And it's all about bringing justice to the world. And the Magnificat is a little bit sassy, or more than a little bit sassy, a little bit saucy. And, Mary, Mary is, she's, of course, Jewish. She's living in land occupied by Romans, and she is relatively poor and a woman, and it probably hasn't been the easiest world for her. And she is thinking of a time, she knows that she's going to bear God to the world, and her prayer that good will come to those who fear the Lord. There are a lot of contrasts in this of God showing power and might that doesn't look too good for the people who have probably made Mary's life and the life of her people miserable. Is shown the strength of his arm, scattered the proud, cast down the mighty, sent the rich away empty. And people I know have called this Mary's throwdown, and it sounds, it's not, again, the way this is a pregnant woman who's about to give birth to God in humble, weak, vulnerable human flesh. And she knows that the package that God is coming in is small and vulnerable. But she also knows that this is how God is going to accomplish these things that she says. And I think, I don't know if at this point Mary is fully aware of how God is going to do all these things. And God is going to do all these things, but probably in a way that looks very different from what we would expect. Again, I mean, casting down the mighty from the thrones, it's like anti-imperialism, but how do we get to anti-imperialism? Through compassion, through love, through, not fighting violence with violence, but transforming violence with love, sending the rich away empty, filling the hungry, but the rich who are full already with pride, with greed, with arrogance. Those are the things that need to be emptied so that we can be refilled with the right things. All of these things that might sound like curses, all of these things that might sound painful, God brings them, and God teaches us to bring them in ways that are actually loving and life-giving, even if they're not necessarily what people want, even if they're not necessarily what we want, I mean.
Well, once I was in a group that met frequently, weekly or monthly or something, and talked about church things. And there was one occasion when we had agreed that we would come the next time, each with a statement about what was the real good news in the gospel. And I said, the first shall be last and the last first. And one of the men in our group immediately said contemplatively, well, that's good if you're last.
Well, exactly.
Revealing that he was conscious of feeling first.
Yeah. Well, recognizing privilege when you first like living in privilege feels great, but recognizing it when you first recognize it, and it's a humbling feeling, and it's uncomfortable, and it's meant to be. But that's the only way we will ever transform privilege into real equity. So it is 10 o'clock now. Okay, I'm just going to go very quickly. Different types of Advent calendars. One thing different ways. One way we could do an Advent calendar would be, I looked up as of now, or as of this morning, there were 123 names on the parish prayer list. Take 123, divide that by 24, and you get 5 with some remainder. You could put 5 names from the parish prayer list on a card for each day, take them out, pray for them. Other things you could do, countries of the world, you could do the same thing. 195, which includes the Palestinian territories and the Vatican, which are the only 2 that are not United Nations voting members. Divide that by 24, you get 8 plus some remainder, add the remainder to Christmas Eve. You could pray for them different days of the week. So I was thinking of all kinds of different ways to observe Advent. There's a act of kindness Advent calendar. Think of 24 acts of kindness, then put them randomly so that you don't know which one, but make sure it's something you can actually do on any given day. It could be as simple as smiling or raking the leaves for your neighbor or something. So those are some ideas, different ways that we could observe Advent. And the time went by and I did not really get to do that in depth, but there. Thank you all for being here, and happy Advent. Happy liturgical New Year.